I've got something that's been a very long time coming, and that is precision tiller bolts for Win&Win risers. In this video, I'm going to show you the ins and outs of the new tiller bolts, the new precision tiller bolts, and I'm going to show you how to install them properly in your Win&Win riser without changing your tiller and hopefully your tune. So like I said, this has been a very long time coming here to show you these precision tiller bolts for Win&Win risers. It's been a bit of a challenge because there are so many different Win&Win risers and many different configurations of their limb bolts that have been had over the past years. This bolt is the type A and B style bolt. That means it will fit any bow that uses type A and type B style risers. I have a comprehensive list down in the description below as to which risers they do fit. That isn't all of them because they've had so many bows over the years and I'm not entirely positive how many do fit that. But these are M13 by 1.25 thread, so they will fit. The C style bolts are M12 by 1.25, so they won't fit because these are too big. These are collet style locks, so they lock just like your standard Win&Win tiller bolt, and they do come with new lock screws, new set screws, that also will work with our bolt. You have to use our bolts and our locks together because of the internal shape of the actual collet seat is slightly different than what's out there. So we've optimized that for as best engagement as possible, as well as trying to maintain the alignment of the limb bolt in the actual bow itself as best as possible as well. These are made out of stainless steel, just like our other tiller bolts that we do have available for Hoyt risers. And they are laser etched, permanently deep etched into the actual stainless. So no matter how much you scratch them, they'll still be there unless you take a grinder to them and then, well, there's nothing going to be there anymore. The laser etching allows for much more precise adjustment. So that way when you're making tiller changes, tune changes, draw weight changes, things like that, you can be very precise and not have the tiller just go out of whack every time you make an adjustment on the bow itself. They are a 5mm metric hex head, just like your standard Win&Win tiller bolts. So that way you don't have to adjust any of your toolkit as well. So I'm going to take this Win&Win ATF-DX and I'm going to put my tiller bolts in this bow and show you how to do it so that way you don't change your tune or your tiller. What you want to do first is make sure you have your bow square, measure your tiller split, and make note of that. In my case, I have a 1/4 inch tiller split, so I'm 7 3/8 on the top and 7 1/8 on the bottom. So what I'll do first is unstring the bow and change one of the tiller bolts. So I'm going to remove the top limb, and I'm going to remove the top tiller bolt. Now these tiller bolts are available in both sizes of the 375 and 380. And just like for the Hoyt bows, I'd recommend different sizes depending on the measurements of your limbs that you have. If you're not sure on how to measure your limbs to check what size tiller bolt to order, I have a video in the description as well as a card at the top up there. So that way you can see how to measure your limbs to make sure you're getting the correct tiller bolt size. In general, it's never a bad idea to just order the 375 tiller bolts if you don't have a set of calipers to measure with. The vast majority of the limbs out there will fit the 375s. Now they are guaranteed to be 374 to 375. That's in thousandths of an inch outside diameter on the shank of the shaft itself. So when you go to put your limbs in, they will be very firm and very snug. And they do require a bit of an effort to push the limb down into the pocket. You may not be used to this if you have worn out limbs or limbs that are possibly oversized in the fork itself. So just beware that it may not be the same, and if you have your bow unstrung like this and you were to shake it back and forth like this and your limbs kind of flop around and make noises like that, that means that your limb forks are generally speaking much larger than the tiller bolt OD is, the outside diameter, which allows for a lot more movement in the bow setup itself. So that way when you're aligning your limbs, maybe even bumping your bow when you go to string it, as you're just getting ready to go shoot and walk on the line and you bump your bow, bump your limbs like this, if there's a gap there, the limb shifts left and right in the pocket and your results will absolutely be affected downrange. I've proved this and I've shot a set of limbs in a bow at 70 meters and have shifted the limbs left and right like that manually by bumping them, and my groups shift at least 12 to 14 inches downrange, which is quite a considerable amount. Something that I was not even aware that was happening until I did some investigating, and again, that's part of the reason why I offer these tiller bolts for now 2 different sets of bows, 2 different bows themselves. So just again, long story short, beware that when you put that limb in, it could require a decent amount of force to click it in place. This is just because the tolerances are now proper. It's nice and snug. It's not going to move, so your limb alignment will be much more precise, way more consistent as you change the actual bow itself every time you restring it. And if you bump it on accident, which happens all the time, it's not going to affect your groups down range, at least not nearly as much. So as I restring the bow, and then you want to measure your tiller split, and I actually kind of put them very, very close. So right now my top measurement is 7 7/16, and the bottom is 7 5/16. So I've got an 1/8 of an inch split. So I want to grow that amount, and I'm going to make the adjustment to make them slightly bigger. So now as I measure, let's see, 7 3/8, almost 7 1/8, just a little bit more. 7 3/8, 7 1/8. I'm right at my 1/4 inch tiller split again. So what I'm going to do is I am going to lock the upper tiller bolt. You do need 2 Allen wrenches with these because they are made out of stainless, and they're a little bit harder to lock than you may be used to, especially if you're using aluminum style tiller bolts that are available on many of the bows out there right now. A good advantage of the laser etching is to make note and see. You can even make a mark on your riser maybe with a pen, and then make note of the number, the indicator on top of the tiller bolt itself. So that way when you go to tighten the back, you can notice and see if the front moved at all. Something to also pay attention to is that it is firmer to put the limb into the pocket. It requires more effort to put it in place, like a considerable amount of force. It also requires a considerable amount of force to remove them as well. Again, it's all about fit and finish. It's all about those tolerances. And if you're into performance and you really want consistency and you want accuracy downrange, no matter what, tight fit is really required, and that's just the way it is. And I'm right at that 1/4 inch tiller split again. If the tiller split is the same when you're changing one bolt at a time, then the overall draw weight should be just about the same. I don't have a bow scale handy, otherwise I would have checked that and shown you, but it's basically going to be the same. If you do what I just did and you check the tiller as well as check your brace height, and you don't see your brace height change, you're going to be basically the exact same draw weight as before, because as you preload the limbs, the brace height will shrink. It just stretches the string more. It's kind of how it works. These precision tiller bolts are currently available on my website, jkaminski.com. They're also available at a few different retailers across the world. You can ask your local pro shop or your local distributor if they have these tiller bolts in stock, and if they don't, shoot them an email and ask them if they would carry them. Let them know that I have no minimum orders as far as quantities are concerned, so if they want to set up a wholesale account with me, happy to do so, and send them some tiller bolts so you can get them from your local source. Thanks for your patience on waiting for these to come out. It's just taken so long to make sure that the fit and finish is correct, that the locking mechanism works correct, and we had to also make the locks for these because, again, over the years, Win&Win has changed not just their tiller bolt style, but their lock style and the interfaces in between them, and there was no way to make them work without producing them for both. Eventually, we'll probably make them in M12 by 1.25, so that way they'll fit the Type C risers like the CXT, I believe, because it won't fit those at the moment. And I like the CXT personally, and I would definitely want to shoot my tiller bolts on them if I could. So if you're watching this video when it just comes out, we have 375s in stock, a small amount of them, 380s and more 375s just arrived. And I've got to laser etch them and box them up before I send them out to you, so it'll be a little bit of a delay, but the 375s are available for shipment and will start shipping tomorrow.